All right. It's good to see so much energy for friendship because that is what our story is about. Good morning. I'm Sonya Sukalski. I'm the sabbatical minister through February while our senior minister, Vanessa Southern, is on sabbatical. This morning, Laura Shenham is under the weather, so I am going to tell the story for you. It's about an elephant and a dog. And no matter how much luxury we enjoy in life, life is empty without the gift of friendship. So it's good to see so many of you here making new friends. And thank goodness it can arise between the most unlikely of characters. Perhaps you've seen images of elephant families holding on to one another, trunk to tail, like true kin. But it isn't always so. The king had just one elephant. This elephant lived alone in a magnificent stable with walls of inlaid marble and bedding of the very finest hay. If ever the elephant showed the least sign of an itch, his caregiver, the mahout, took him down to the river for a roll in the mud and a scrub in the water. And when the elephant was hungry, he was served the finest sweet rice with the freshest cabbages, bananas, oranges, and acacia leaves that was always followed by a giant elephant-sized cube of sugar. I'm not really sure if it's this big or if it's, I don't know. And really, this elephant had nothing to complain about except boredom. It was true. He spent much of his time just rocking back and forth, alone in his stable. Meanwhile, a scrawny, skinny little dog lived just outside the royal stable. He lurked alone in the shadows, and he rarely had enough to eat. But this dog, he had one pleasure. When the mahout arrived with the elephant's barrels of food, he would just sit below the stable. And what do dogs do? They sniff. And he would enjoy those fragrances of the rice and the cabbages, bananas, and sugar. Sometimes just sniffing made his belly feel almost full. One day, though, the stable door was left slightly ajar, just enough so this skinny little dog could squeeze through. He skulked in the shadows, quaking a little bit. He wasn't sure what the elephant would do. Would the elephant notice? No. But the dog noticed. He noticed that when the elephant ate, he dropped all kinds of crumbs. The dog salivated. And when the elephant still seemed oblivious to him, the dog found courage. He crept right up, right underneath the big animal to feast on those crumbs. The elephant didn't seem to notice, but if you looked carefully, you might have seen that he was rocking back and forth, this elephant, with a little bit more light and lilt. The dog was too busy picking up crumbs to see. And so when he finished eating, he just retreated back into the shadows and fell asleep. And so it went. The dog crawled under the elephant to lick up the crumbs and then retreated. Do you think the elephant would notice? No. But the odd thing was that he spilled more crumbs with each passing day. And the dog grew healthier and livelier, and finally one day, the elephant looked down, and the dog, he cowered a little. Was the elephant angry? No. He was delighted. He reached out his trunk and wrapped it around the dog in a warm embrace, and that night, the two slept cuddled together. And so it went. By night, the two friends slept cozy as could be, and by day, they shared their food and exchanged stories. And then the mahout became kind of conscious of the dog. Do you think he would mind? No, he didn't mind. What did it matter if a dog wanted to lick up the crumbs? Things might have continued in this happy way for a very long time, except that the Malhoot heard that a visiting merchant was looking for a dog. And the Malhoot immediately thought of this stray dog. It didn't really belong to anyone, and surely it wouldn't matter if he sold it to earn a few extra coins for his family. Would it matter? Did he do it anyway? Yup. Sadly, he didn't seem to be aware that he shouldn't, and so he put the dog on a leash and he brought it to the merchant, and the merchant, delighted in the dog's shiny coat and healthy good looks, he paid a fine price and dragged the dog away. The Malhoot continued to care for the elephant as usual, but this elephant began to languish. The food was as plentiful as ever, the spa treatments were as frequent as ever, but the elephant had lost interest in everything. He lay listlessly on the stable floor. Word spread, the king began to worry. What had happened to his elephant? Could the Malhoot explain it? No. When he couldn't say, the king called on his advisor for help. At the stable, the advisor checked in the elephant's ears and down his throat. He checked his temperature and his pulse. The elephant wasn't sick, but one look in the elephant's eyes and the advisor knew that the elephant was grieving. Grieving? The king called for the Mahout, who suddenly became to think about the dog that he'd sold. Of course, that was it. But he had no idea where the merchant lived. So word went out, the king issued a proclamation, and the dog was brought back. They found out that the dog had cried constantly since he'd been in the merchant's possession. The merchant was more than happy to release him, and as soon as he did, the dog stopped whimpering and raced straight into the elephant's stable. Was the elephant happy to see his good friend? Yes. Of course, absolutely. He pulled himself up from the floor to wrap his trunk around the dog, and they snuggled for a very long time. Before long, the elephant's appetite returned. Having his friend beside him was exactly the medicine he needed. It's some of the best medicine in the world.